Hey guys, Theory here, and welcome back to another episode of Lord of the Rings Theory. I hope you're as excited as I am to be here. If you're new to the channel, I wish you a warm welcome, and if you like the content, you can subscribe to stay up to date with my work. Without further ado, I bring to you, what if Gandalf took the One Ring? In the year 3001 of the Third Age, Bilbo hosts an unexpected party with a very unexpected twist, as the famous hobbit disappears with the use of his magic ring. After his discussion with Gandalf in Bag End, Bilbo relinquishes the ring to his nephew, Frodo, before setting out to Rivendell. Meanwhile, Gandalf ensures the ring passes to Frodo before he takes leave from Bag End. 17 years pass, and in that time, Gandalf studies the scriptures of Isildur, and he learns from the elves of Lothlorien regarding Gollum's imprisonment in Mirkwood. Rushing back to the Shire in April of 3018 to warn Frodo that he in fact possesses the One Ring forged by Sauron, we eventually arrive at this scene.
Take it, Gandalf! Take it!
No, Frodo.
You must take it!
You cannot offer me this ring.
Initially resisting the ring, with the wizard being aware of its harmful and destructive value, Frodo yells out at him again.
I'm giving it to you!
And this is where our timeline takes a twist of fate. As Frodo incessantly cries out at Gandalf to take the ring, the wizard considers that the enemy, who is now familiar with the name Baggins, was advancing towards the Shire. He could hear and feel the ring calling out to him, as the severity of the situation was inhabiting the wizard. Looking down towards the unsettled hobbit, the wizard succumbs to the temptation of the One. Slowly extending his right hand, he takes the ring from Frodo. The wizard hurriedly says his goodbyes, instructing the halfling to refuge outside of the Shire for the near future, and fearfully he departs Bag End. Hastily setting out for Rivendell, the wizard arrives there on May the 1st. In this alternate timeline, Gandalf does not feel the need to see Saruman, since he does not encounter Radagast, and he believes there is nothing that he could learn from his fellow Istari member. Whether that was wisdom or the ring corrupting his mind, I'll leave for you to consider. Meeting his allies in Rivendell, Gandalf reunites with Aragorn before partaking in an undisclosed conversation with Elrond. The Grey Pilgrim reveals that he is in possession of the One. He reaches into his pocket to reveal the ring. With his brows raised, Elrond instructs Gandalf to place the ring in a secure vault to immobilize the corruption of the jewel. Being in great haste, the company take around 1 week to hold a council. Since the timeline has been fast forwarded and Gandalf has taken the ring, many events in Middle-earth have been altered or not yet occurred. The Council of Elrond in this alternate timeline would be held around 5 months prior, and Saruman's treason would not yet have been apparent, since he did not have the opportunity to reveal himself to Gandalf. At the new improvised and more secret Council of Elrond, which would have been exclusive to Imladris residents as well as Gandalf, the wizard would volunteer to bear the ring to Mordor, claiming that the ring hadn't been a burden on him thus far, and that perhaps he underestimated his will against the ring. Elrond, concerned at this appeal, unenthusiastically accepts Gandalf's offer. As the Elf Lord comprehends, no other immediate alternative is available. Setting out from Rivendell alongside the wizard was Aragorn, Glorfindel, and 2 additional Imladris elves. On May the 16th, the Fellowship of the Ring set out from Rivendell on their quest to destroy the ring. Unlike in the books and adaptation, the Fellowship were not concerned with the Nazgul. They had not yet been revealed. Since the Fellowship was comprised of a wizard, Aragorn, and 3 light-footed elves, they chose to acquire 1 horse per member. plus an additional steed for their luggage. Elrond granted them his most capable horses for their significant quest. Electing to ride meant they would be required to travel via the road, meaning the company could trek at greater speed. Beginning their journey at a gallop, following an ease of pace and intermittently repeating these patterns on their ride on the road, understanding that Mordor was not yet at full strength, they had the opportunity to pace to their first stop. The Fellowship weren't fools. They knew they had to travel swiftly to subdue the toll of the ring upon its bearer. Their plan was not stealth, it was speed. Intermittently, they voyaged along lesser straining paths, conquering the road at speed. They arrived at the north-south road after 3 days, and they began their journey south towards Saruman. The company arrived at Isengard on May the 23rd, 7 days after their departure from Rivendell. Saruman greeted the Fellowship, and he was surprised to see Gandalf, with 4 companions accompanying him. He was particularly interested in Aragorn. Saruman's keen eyes had observed the serpent ring on the ranger. Recognizing that Gandalf was traveling with Isildur's heir, the lost king of Gondor, he understood their arrival was significant. Welcoming the company into Orthanc, he was hospitable to his guests, offering them wine and warm meals. He spoke to Gandalf. "Tell me, my old friend, what brings you to Isengard with 3 elves and a ranger from the north whose ancestors long ago designed the very walls we are speaking within?" Gandalf spoke openly with Saruman and revealed to him their quest to destroy the ring. They were to gather the armies of men in Middle-earth and march upon the Black Gate, a similar plan to the last alliance at the conclusion of the Second Age. This time, however, they obtained the ring. "Interesting strategy, Gandalf. Was it you or Elrond who came up with this foolery?" Saruman said insultingly. Gandalf emphasized that the ring had come to him, and he had no choice other than to take it. To destroy it, they must travel at great speed before the ring can corrupt the wizard, and Sauron could unleash his armies. Saruman had planned to lure Gandalf in joining him to ally with Sauron, although in discovering that Gandalf has the ring, he knew now that Gandalf would never join him, and he knew with the one ring in his possession, he could not defeat him in combat. So the White Wizard considered a new plan. "If this is your path, Gandalf, so be it. It is clear to me that you had no choice in the matter. I will join you in your quest of destroying the ring. At dawn, we shall ride together." The company were joyful. They now had 2 mighty wizards in their midst, although Gandalf had a troublesome feeling, allowing his longtime friend to join him on his quest. Although the 2 wizards were sent to Middle-earth over 2,000 years ago together, and their collective mission was to defeat Sauron, and the only way to accomplish this feat was by destroying the ring. Resting the night in the Tower of Orthanc, they had planned to ride out in the morning for Edoras in Rohan, to counsel with King Theoden in his Golden Hall, Meduseld. In the middle of the night, whilst the company were fast asleep, Saruman had snuck out onto the plains of Isengard and quietly used his Palantir to communicate with his secret master, Sauron. Using his thoughts to communicate with the Dark Lord, he revealed everything to his master. So on May the 24th, the company had now set out for Rohan. They were making great speed, and the ring was now slowly beginning to take a hold of the wizard, although he had not yet come to realize it. The Sauron becoming knowledgeable of the Fellowship and their plan to wage war on his doorstep, he ramped up the production of his armies, and he prepared to unleash the Nine for war. In the canon timeline, on June the 20th, 3018, Sauron attacks Osgiliath. However, Gondor was ultimately victorious. This time, the battle would be hosted a few weeks prior. However, in this alternate timeline, Mordor's armies would have a distinct advantage. Travelling into the fords of Isen and past Helm's Deep, the company arrive at Edoras comfortably on the 26th of May. This is 9 months prior to the canon timeline. At Edoras, the company surrendered their weapons to Hummer. Aside from the wizard staffs, Saruman reunites with his spy Grima Wormtongue, who was standing next to the aged king. Saruman and Grima had continued to conceal their duplicity. Gandalf frees Theoden from his spell, and the wizard obtained Shadowfax as an acknowledgement of goodwill from the king. With this treason being apparent, Grima was imprisoned. Saruman had suggested that this spy and imposter could not be trusted. He proposed the immediate assassination of the defector. Gandalf was in agreement with his White Council member. This caused Aragorn great reason for concern. He knew this was unlike the characteristics of Mithrandir, and he was immediately cautious of Saruman. King Theoden approved of the assassination. Conversely, Aragorn suggested to interrogate the prisoner, claiming that enough blood has been spilt on his account. Theoden, whose mind was still recovering from the spell cast upon him by the wizard sitting across from him, now concurred with Aragorn. We must know who Grima has been aiding. I fear gravely, for I dread that it may be the very dark powers lying within Mordor, though I cannot see how that is possible, said Theoden. The king, along with his son Theodred, nephew Eomer, along with the Fellowship, went to the prisons of Rohan, where Grima was isolated. Travelling to the cells, Grima was wrought. Theoden sent the Watchers away, and began to question his former counsellor. Grima, long have you counselled me, and long have you twisted my mind. Speak to me the truth of your treachery, and I will bid you any horse that will bear you. You shall be free in any dominion outside of Rohan. Think wisely before you answer, and answer truthfully, for we have 2 wise wizards alongside me, who will punish you awfully if they detect a lie. What say you, Grima? At that moment, Saruman had begun to warp Grima's mind as covertly as possible. His voice was inside the psyche of his spy. To the company, Saruman was as ordinary as he always was, but to Grima, he was dark and focused. Spitting at his king, Grima darted into the corner of his cell, rocking back and forth, facing the brick wall. He had now turned his back on his interrogators. Speaking out loud to Theoden, Saruman exclaimed, I told you, Theoden, he does not have the heart nor the desire to speak the truth. He is wicked beyond all reckoning. Keep the guards and torment the conspirator, or have it over and done with already, and kill him. Turning to Gandalf, Aragorn asked Mithrandir what their plan was now. When shall we take our leave for Gondor? Gandalf replied, It is clear to me that we do not have the time to treat with a witless worm. Whatever nonsense that slips from his mouth now cannot be trusted, whilst the words are in front of a forked tongue. Leave him here to rot. We have urgent matters to discuss. Leaving the cells, Saruman eyed Grima, and a wry smile appeared, before he slipped away with the others. Sitting at the meeting was Gandalf, Saruman, Aragorn, Glorfindel, the 2 elves which we have not named, as well as Eomer, his cousin the Prince of Rohan Theodred, and his father, the King of Rohan, Theoden. In this council, Gandalf urged that the Rohirrim march to Gondor. There, they will send out an alliance to the Black Gate and storm into Mordor. Theoden was extremely hesitant to outright abandon Edoras, and rightfully so. The plan was unexpected and erratic. Eomer and Theodred had together agreed that they should make for Gondor, for orc raids and attacks were rising amidst their borders, and if there was a plan to eternally defeat Sauron, they wished to aid those aiming to accomplish such a feat. After some counselling, Theoden agreed to ride to Gondor with as many soldiers as he could spare. On the first light of June, Rohan would be emptied. A small number of troops would be sent to their garrison of Helm's Deep, along with the women and children, and those that were unfit to fight. The Fellowship along with Saruman agreed, and that night, Saruman snuck from Meduseld into the grassy plains of Rohan, so he could use his Palantir to communicate with his master, Sauron. He spoke with the Dark Lord, and told him of the Fellowship's plan to travel with Rohan, elaborating that by the 8th of June, an army would arrive at the gate of Minas Tirith, and then to Mordor's doorstep. Over the next 5 days, the city of Edoras prepared to empty, sending out riders to the Wold, the Westfold, and the other cities that comprise Rohan to prepare their armies and civilians to empty. By order of the king, the story now travels to the east, to the land of Shadow. On the 27th of May, Sauron begins rigorously preparing the armies of Mordor, unleashing the Nine as well as all the orcs that he can muster. The attack on Osgiliath occurs 3 weeks prior to the original timeline. Sending forth his legions, the Nine and their band of orcs defeat Osgiliath and claim the strategic positioning of their garrison. Boromir and his brother Faramir retreat to the capital Minas Tirith and light the beacons. On the eve of their ride to Minas Tirith, the Rohirrim see the beacon of Halifdian lit. Ill news for the riders who would now rush their voyage to ride to the aid of their allies.
Now is the hour! Riders of Rohan! Oaths you have taken! Now fulfill them all! To Lord and land! Ha!
Arriving at Minas Tirith on the dawn of the 5th day of their journey, the armies of Rohan witness Gondor on the verge of defeat. King Theoden delivers his passionate speech, and the Rohirrim charge down the Pelennor fields towards the orcs who had sieged the White City. Since the Battle of Helm's Deep had not occurred in this timeline, the Rohirrim had more soldiers during the Battle of the Pelennor fields, and since Sauron had less time to prepare his armies, they had a smaller host. The Haradrim from the south and the Eastlings had not had enough time to prepare their armies in time for the battle, so they would not be involved. With the orcs outmatched after the arrival of the Rohirrim, they retreat to Mordor. Although the battle was decisive, both Gondor and Rohan suffered great losses. King Theoden and his son Theodred perish in combat against the Witch King. Eowyn, who had not had Merry by her side with his Westernest dagger, also perishes, attempting to save her uncle from the Witch King. King Theoden's final sight before his untimely passing was the slaying of his niece, Eowyn. Eomer would now be the next in line to lead the throne of Rohan. He was devastated at the passing of his 3 closest family members. Partaking in the council located in the chambers of the steward was Saruman, Denethor, his sons Boromir and Faramir, as well as 3 of the members of the Fellowship, Glorfindel, Aragorn, and the Ringbearer, Gandalf. The other 2 Inladris elves involved in the Fellowship had fallen side by side in battle. Gandalf, who still desired to do good, although he could now feel the heavy burden of the ring, turned to Saruman. So, it has come at last. The great battle of our time is upon us. We hastened from Rivendell with promptness, yet Sauron the Deceitful was a step ahead of us. I fear now, our plan was in vain. There are none who can see the forthcoming will of the Dark Lord Sauron, Saruman interjected. You did well, Gandalf, to set the motion of attack in action. If you had not, and the ring was still located north with your Shire friends, hope would be lost, and we would be in despair. One final march to the Black Gate, and we will finish Sauron everlastingly. Aragorn had been silent, and he was deep in thought. Smoking pipeweed in his withered gear, the destined King of Gondor spoke his mind. Alas, my friends, we cannot linger too long upon our counsel. The longer we toil, we provide our enemy the opportunity to recuperate. Gandalf, my old friend, you have done well in carrying the ring this far. You have burdened it soundly. Will you not yield the ring so that another may cast it into the fire? The council had their eyes fixed on the wizard and the ranger. I concur, stated Saruman. If you allow it, Gandalf, I shall volunteer to bear the ring to the mountain. I am fresh and more powerful than you, without the use of magic rings, that is. You are not who I had in mind, stated Aragorn. Denethor spoke abruptly. So, Ranger from the North, it is clear to see your desire for power. First, You arrive here and claim lordship over my lands, and now you seek to possess the mighty ring. I see through your greed, Aragorn, son of Arathorn. I will never bow before a wicked usurper. The ring was now reverberating tremendously in Gandalf's pocket. The wizard could feel it deeply inheriting his soul and twisting his mind. Almost as if the corruption was strategically timed, rapidly, the wizard's will was being consumed. Tell me, Aragorn, when did you begin to conspire your plan to take the ring? Was it in Rivendell? And for you, Saruman, I would not surrender the ring to none outside of the very pits of doom. To this moment I have shown extraordinary resilience towards evil. No being in the history of Ardor can say the same. The ring was given to me, and I shall destroy it. For 2,000 years I have lingered here to defeat Sauron, for that is my purpose, and defeat him I shall. If any here try to take the ring, I will see it as an act of treason, and they shall have their head on a spike. Have I made myself clear? With that, the meeting continued. Aragorn never revealed himself to Sauron in the Palantir as he did in the original timeline, for he was much more gravely concerned for the two wizards. The meeting concluded, and they prearranged that on the third dawn, they would march to the Black Gate for the Battle of Morannon. On the 8th of June, just 3 weeks after they had formed the Fellowship, the men of the West begin marching towards Mordor, arriving at the Black Gate on the 9th of June. Being greeted by the mouth of Sauron and not arranging a treaty, the mouth retreats behind the gate as Mordor is emptied. Sauron's armies could be heard. Collectively, they marched forward and began surrounding the men of the West. An epic battle occurs. Saruman and Gandalf have no issue in battling the Nazgul, using their powers to continually drive off the ringwraiths, killing their fell beasts which violently crash into the host of orcs. With each second and each kill, the toll of the ring bears a greater weight on the Grey Pilgrim. Aragorn, Eomer, Boromir, Faramir and Glorfindel dominate in the fields of Morannon as the orcs diminish and the Nazgul retreat. Great losses on both sides occur. However, the men of the West were victorious in battle. They venture forward in their pursuit of Orodruin. The Council of Leaders travel ahead into the dark and desolate Mordor. Approaching the mountain, the company were uneasy. Aragorn was certain that Gandalf would decide to keep the ring. Appearing out of thin smoke, the collective footsteps of the Nine were heard. Stand behind Saruman and I, and they cannot harm you, cried Gandalf. Saruman began pacing ahead, facing the Witch King. Speech in the black tongue could be heard. Slowly, the White Wizard turned around, raising his staff, and with the Nine behind him, he uttered, Gandalf, this is where our little friendship comes to an end. Seize me the ring, and we shall spare you. Gandalf began to laugh. Wearing the ring for the first time, the wizard began to bellow the black speech of Mordor. Saruman used his staff, and with all his might, directed an attack on the ring bearer, recoiling harmlessly off the wizard, who now with the use of the ring, was large and more frightening than ever before. The fire ricocheted from Gandalf directly into Boromir, sending him violently into the terrain of the Black Land. While Saruman was focused on inflicting as much harm as possible to his Istari council member, the Witch King thrust his sword into the spine of the White Wizard. The blade appeared through the other side of his white garb. Saruman fell to his knees, falling face forward into the ground. The Lord of the Nazgul had just obeyed a direct command from Gandalf. The others were speechless. Faramir was crouched next to his stiff brother. With tears streaming down his face, he was mourning the death of Boromir. The Nazgul now began approaching the leaders of the free world. Swords in hand, Gandalf spoke to them further in the black speech, and with that, they halted and dropped their swords the wizard took off the ring, returning to his natural form, although the others could not help but view him as darker and more twisted. Does anyone else here protest the ring being in my stead? Speak quickly, lords. None spoke. Aragorn had tears running down his blackened cheeks. Very well, I shall complete this quest on my own, since none of you can be trusted. Traveling to Barad-dûr, Gandalf razed the tower to the ground. Using his ring Narya and the One Ring, Barad-dûr collapsed. Sauron's body was crushed again, and his influence was no more. If the ring was not to be destroyed, his essence would inherit bodily form again after thousands of years. Gandalf, in his ultimate desire to do good, would keep the ring, shaping Middle-earth as he desired it to be, being a tyrant ruler of all the lands. Aragorn would rule as King of Gondor, and Eomed as King of Rohan. Together, they would have to rebel against the Dark Wizard if they were to ever receive freedom. The Nazgûl would be Gandalf's loyal servants, bidding them around Middle-earth as he wills. In the Fellowship of the Ring book, Saruman states, "I have it not, as surely its servants perceive without telling, for if I had it, then you would bow before me and call me Lord," referring to the Nazgûl whilst they were searching for the One Ring, ultimately meaning that if Saruman possessed the ring, the Nazgûl would serve the wizard. And in John Ronald Reuel Tolkien's letter 246, he states, Gandalf as Ring Lord would have been a contest between the ring's true allegiance to Sauron versus Gandalf's actual possession of the ring. But if Gandalf had been the victor, it would have been far worse off than Sauron winning. The righteous Gandalf would have become self-righteous, ruling and ordering things for good, until he had made good detestable and seem evil. So I tried keeping this story as close to Tolkien's vision as possible, and I hope that he would approve of this theory. Thank you for sticking around until the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed it and would consider giving it a thumbs up, as it really does help the channel. If you wish to further support the channel, you can always share this video or check out the merch shop for the 99 Problems tee or hood. More cool designs will be coming your way, so stay tuned. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. And as always, my Middle-earth friends, Hananlei for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode of Lord of the Rings Theory.
Embrace the power of the ring, or embrace your own destruction.
Renewed shall be blade that was broken. The crownless again shall be king.